On deficits, in 2002, Cheney reportedly said this to then Treasury Secretary Paul O'Neill when talking about another round of tax cuts. He said, quote, "Reagan proved deficits don't matter. We won the midterms. This is our due." All right, Dick Cheney is worried sick about deficits under Barack Obama. Under Bush, nobody cares about deficits.
The president said in 2002 the tax cut would generate 800,000 jobs. In 2003, so it'd be another million jobs. None of that has happened. What has happened is the deficit is skyrocketing. If you froze the tax cut for the top 1% of Americans, it would generate enough money to pay for the $87 billion for the war. If you did it for just 1 year, would you consider that?
I think it's a big mistake. Tax cuts accounted for only about 25% of the deficit.
But we see deficits for the next 10 years. Big ones.
As soon as they took office, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney went to work turning a budget surplus into a deficit. They gave their rich buddies a pair of huge tax cuts. They started 2 wars without paying for them. And by the end of their 8 years in charge, Bush and Cheney had led the country into an economic freefall, which Dick Cheney has the nerve to blame on President Obama. Meanwhile, the Bush administration had the worst job creation record since at least 1939.
There are people, I assume, watching this interview right now, and people in this town who would say, why should we listen to you? And they would say that because of the context of the Bush administration numbers. They would say, you know, what did you do when you were in charge? And they have some numbers that back up their case, and I want to show some to our viewers. When you came to office, the unemployment rate in the country was 4.2%. When you left, it was 7.6%. The number of Americans in poverty when you arrived, just under 33 million, over 37 million when you left. The number without health insurance, a little over 41 million when you came, over 45 million, approaching 46 million when you left. And you came with a budget surplus of $128 billion, and in the final year, the budget deficit was a record $1.3 trillion. So what would you say to someone out there watching this who's saying, why should they listen to you?
Well, stuff happens.